about relationship, one-to-one relationship, one-to-many relationship, many-to-one. So this case now, since we want to make a user able to follow another user. So one user is one user able to follow another single user. So I don't know, it's a little bit confusing the way I'm seeing it. It looks like one-to-one relationship, but it also looks like one-to-many. But I guess it's one-to-one. So I don't know. I guess we're going to do the schema. Let's say maybe create another table in a way that, or a schema that allows a, I guess it's like many to one is it many to one? Yes, many to one, because one person can be followed by many people. So I don't know. I guess we're going to maybe edit the user table in a way that we have followed or something, whereby it shows all the people that is following a particular user. I don't know. That's the way, although it's still confusing, but I guess that's where it's around that area we're going to start. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's a message. Who else? Mike? Do you have any ideas?
Okay, it will be closely related to what Uche said. So since a user is one person and it can be linked to several followers, I would assume that we could have a foreign key linking a particular user to a particular follower. So probably create another table, which will also help us keep count of the number of followers the person has. So I would say a one-to-one relationship, because each user is going to have a direct relationship with whoever is following them. And we could just have one field like that links to the user model.
Right, that's perfect. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, did you hear me? Did I? Hello? Were you able to hear me again?
No, we aren't hearing you for a bit.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I had a network disruption. So you are all right. You're all right. All we need to do is to create a new table, because we need to, maybe if we were using a database like MongoDB, we could have possibly added another field there, then call this follows, right? Then make this an array, kind of an array field that we can like put an ID of all the users that are following us. Okay, we can say maybe followers, then then that's how it is called on Twitter, where the followers are the people following you, who are following the people you are following. So if we're using a database like MongoDB, we could have just stored the ID of these users in this particular list. But we are using a relational database, so that will not be very efficient. All we need to do is what we're going to do is to create init that will track follows. So we'll do something like this. So I'll call this class follows. I'll call this table follows. Then, as usual, it will inherit from the base model, so that we can get some of the properties like ID, like the created at and data that fields. Then,
yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Now the next thing we need to do is to we need to get the user that is doing the following. All right. The user that, like, let's say me and let's say Uche and I. All right. If I am the one following Uche, what do we call this user? What name would you suggest? Should we say follower?
Yeah, follower.
Or okay, let's call this the follower, and I want it to be a foreign key that will link to the user's table, because of course a follower is a user. We'll change this related name to follower. Then this field should be null. Now, what do we call the user that is being followed? What name would you suggest?
Okay. User that is being followed. Follow.
Can we use the double E here?
Follow we. Follow we.
Yeah, I think follow is the right name for it. So let's call this follow. Then follow also will be it will be a foreign key that's a one-to-many relationship with the user table. Good. I think this is all we need to capture here. Nothing else, just the follower and the followee, which all link to the user table. So my idea behind this is that when I want to follow, let's say Uche, I will decline to send the ID of Uche to me, over to the endpoints that were responsible for that. Then I will extract the user Uche from our DB. And of course, the get current user will extract my details from the DB. When I have these two details, I'll then create an object on this follows table that has the user that I want to follow as the followee, while the user that is doing the following is a follower. That way, for each user, let's say for each user, we can create a separate endpoint that will extract the number of followers a user has, right? And the number of persons that this user is following. So let's do that now. To do that, the very first thing we need to do is to migrate this table. For now, it is not on our Postgres, so we need to add it to the database, and we do that with make db migrate, which under the hood runs this Docker compose runs with sh-c migrate. No changes. Why is it so? Let's check. Okay. I need to import it to this. I need to import it to this image. So let's try that. Good. So the migration is successful. Now, it's always good practice to go through the migration file and see what happens. So this is a pure SQL. This is a pure SQL generation, and if you look at line 2, see that it is create table if not exist follows. What this means is that create a table in the DB if this table does not exist. Right. So if we already have a table called follows in our database, this script will not execute. And now, what do we want to add to the table? We want to add an ID which has a data type of UUID. And we don't want it to be null. Right? Not null means it should never be null. And this ID is our primary key. That's why we have primary key here. Then we have a criteria field, which is the timestamp, which the data is timestamp. Then it shouldn't be null. Then the default value should be the current time. The current time. Then updated at is basically the same thing. Then this fluid. Yeah, you see fluid ID. I think I mentioned this a couple of, that was in the last class, I think, that even though in this class, this model class, we have fluid. Right, there's nothing like fluid in the DB. Nothing like fluid.
Oh, sir, please, I cannot hear you, sir.
Okay, can you not hear me?
Okay, sir. Bit audible.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm saying is that a couple of classes ago, I told you guys that when you have a class like this that is a foreign key relation, we don't have something like fluid in the DB. All we have is a fluid ID, which is of type which basically it references another table, and this is why we have these references. And which table are we referencing? We're referencing table of user, the user table, which is called user. And which data are we referencing in that table? We're referencing this ID, the ID of the user. Right? Don't forget that the ID is the primary key for that particular table. So that's what we're referencing. And this primary key is of the UUID. That's why we have this UUID here. Now, when we delete this user, what do you want? How do you want these follows objects to be handled? All right. We want it to like delete on cascade. So whenever we delete the user, we should also delete the follow information that we have for the user. So that's for followee ID, and for follower ID, it's basically the same thing. So when we run make upgrade, when we run the command to upgrade the DB, it will basically translate all of this. It will basically execute all of this, right? This SQL. Now, to downgrade that particular upgrade, we simply drop this table follows. You use drop table to basically delete a table from the DB. Right? You simply drop that table called follows. So what we're going to do now is to run upgrade command to actually commit this to the database. All right, so the commit is successful. That's why we have a success upgrade one blah 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 update.sql. It means that if we check our database, we now have this particular table. Up next, we are going to create the endpoints that will make this follows possible. So we do that. We need let me create a test file for that. Code is test underscore user file. Then move that there. Okay, I want our follows. I want it to be get requests. Okay, before we get to that, I'd love to like post your questions on the migration flow. Do we understand it, or do you want me to go back to it?
Okay. I'm trying to, because I've been trying to like make sense of how the table, let's say, works or how it gets populated. So let's say since we created a table for follows, so I'm imagining it like a normal table with two columns. So we have the follower, the person that is following, and we have the followee, so the person that is being followed. So let's say we have a large database of many users, let's say 500 users, for example. Let's say I'm one of the users. I have my own ID. So let's say if I am following, for example, let's say if I'm following 10 people in our database now, in this Twitter platform. So I'm guessing that table, we have like 10 rows, whereby the first column will be my user ID. So let's say whatever my ID is 10 times, then the next column will be the ID of each of the 10 people I'm following. Then let's say there's another person that is following another 15 people. So the next set of rows will show that person's user ID. So I'm guessing that on that table, on that user, on that follows table that we created, there can be repeating values, because you can, if one person is following many people, it will have to reflect that, okay, this user ID is following this user ID is following this user ID. Am I correct? I'm just trying to like visualize how it is. Okay.
Yeah, sure, you're correct. You're correct.
Okay.
You're correct. So if you're following someone like Mickey, it will just create a table there that you're following Mickey. Then if Mickey then follows you to like create another record. This is just one of the ways you can tackle this, or you can actually do this. There are other ways, like I had explained earlier. Maybe if we were using MongoDB, we could have just possibly created an array without having to create a new table. We could have just created an array under this user table to track the number of people following and the number of people following. And even with this, it is still possible for us to do it with this DB. We could do something like a char field with maybe possibly an infinite length. Then possibly stringify the ID of the user you're following and put it there. But it's maybe separate both of them with possibly space. But it's entirely possible, but it won't be that efficient. Right? It won't be that efficient. So there are a lot of ways we could tackle this problem, but I feel this is really the best way to go about it.
Okay. And also I'm guessing, okay, since it goes on this way, I'm guessing that if we want to like fetch how many users, how many people that, let's say, someone is following, or maybe how many people that how many followers a person has, I'm guessing there will be some kind of, I don't know if it will be on the background, maybe it's already done automatically, or whether it's something we write. There will be some kind of SQL query that will check that database, because I'm guessing it has to query that table to know, okay, this user, how many. So
yeah, in this case, if we want to, using this method, if we want to know how many users a particular person is following, this is the followee. Okay, we'll simply query, maybe let's say if you want to know how many users you are following, that means in such cases when you are following someone, you are a follower, and that person is a followee. We'll simply query this particular table for instances where you are the follower. We'll get it all out, then we count and return the value.
Okay, okay.
It will be something like this. Show you. To say something like this, weights. Which follows the filter, then filter instances where the follower is the current user. Then we use the method count, which returns a count of the objects in the query set.
Okay, okay. So there's a count method. Okay.
Yeah, there's a count method. Or you could maybe use something like this will also give you the size of that
Okay.
the size of this query set. Yeah, that's how we get the number of users you are following. Then to get the number of users that are following you, it will be something like this. We look for instances where the followee is this current user. Okay. Then we call count on that. We call count on the query set to return the total count. So this using this method makes it a whole lot easier. But if we were using the other method of like inserting the field under this user and making it a child field, then separating the fields by maybe space, it would have been more. It would have been a little bit more cumbersome, because it will be something like this. Maybe we can get the user.get. Okay, no, we already have the user from current user. So it would have been current user dot maybe followers. Then this will give us a string that we stored these IDs in. Then we could say something like this: follows ID is equal to follows.split. This split is a Python method you can use to like split a string. Split a string by a delimiter. So in this case, we want to split by space. So if we had something like let's say we have a string like a space e space c a space t v. All right. When you call the string of split, it will give you an array containing things like a e c t. So that's what split does. All right. And split takes a delimiter. Like what do you want to make the split with? So in this case, you want to make the split with space. You can split with something else. In this case, if we split it with C, if we split it with C, it would have just divided this string into two, and maybe I would have given us two arrays. Okay, one array with 2 items in it instead of 4 items in it. So that's what we would have done. We would have simply split the whole thing by space, and that will give us an array of these IDs. Then from there we can return the length of this array. something like length of follows ID. So this is also another method of another way of tackling the problem, but I think it will not be that performant, right? It won't be that performant.
Yeah, I think the way we're currently doing it is the best.
Yeah, the way we're doing it is cleaner and it should be faster and easier to maintain. So let us build the endpoint. I want it to be a GET request. A GET request to follow path. Then I would love to give this endpoint a name. So code is follow. Then response model should. I'm not going to return anything, so let's leave that. And status code. I want to come a 201 response. A 201 status code. You know? Status code will be a response. Then this should be an asynchronous function, and I'll call this function following. Takes no other parameters apart from current user, because our user needs to sign in. Then one more thing, we need the ID of this user we are following. So I will attach that to the request for this user ID. To get that ID, which should import from fast API. Then I'll define user ID here. User ID will be of type string is equal to there's that. Here we write the actual code that will execute these follows. All right, all we need to do is to simply await. Okay, now we should get that user first. We await user.get or no. I want to get the user with the ID of user ID. Now, if Louis is known, we should if Louis is known, we should raise an exception. We should raise an exception, and to do that, we need to import HTTP exception. With the status code of 404. Then editor, our detail should be this user doesn't exist. Now, if the code should, if the flow should escape line 41, that means this is exists. So we are going to create a following. We'll await this is follows dot create. We'll await follows dot create, and this follows dot create takes the follower, and in this case the follower is our current user. So it's a follower ID is equal to current user ID, then followee ID is equal to followee ID. Do you understand this? Any question on this?
No question from me, I understand.
Okay. But there is a problem here. All right, with this implementation, it will be possible for a user to follow one user twice, which is not what we want. Also, we do not have a check to prevent a user from following himself or herself. So we are going to do that. Right, so here, before we actually create this follow, I want to be sure that this user is not following himself. Okay, so we check that if following dot ID is equal to current user dot ID, we should raise an exception. This exception should be 401. Unauthorized request. With the detail of you can't follow yourself. You can't follow yourself. The next thing we're going to do is to check that we need to confirm that a user cannot follow another user twice. Okay, so to do that, we are going to run a check, and we'll store that check as already followed. This will be await follows the filter. Then we want to look for the appearance of this. Where the follower ID is the current user ID, and the following ID is the following ID. So this will, if this filter should return something, it shows that they have already followed themselves, and we should reject this request at that point. But thankfully for us, AutoSwarm comes with something else, another method that is called exists. This will return bool, return true/false, whether query set exists. What this means is that if this query set should return something, should return any entity, right? It should return true. Okay, then if this should return nothing. So this exists to return false. So all I'm going to do is to check if already followed. If already followed, we will then raise an exception. We then raise an exception. You can't follow send $send twice. And if the code should escape all these checks, it means that everything is okay. We will then go ahead at line 59 and create the follow. Then return a successful response. So please, do you understand this?
Yeah, I understand what you did. Though I have some questions.
Please go ahead.
So first of all, the if statement, that's this place you put on line 37 and line 42. Is there anything wrong if we put it in one if statement using elif? So instead of having two ifs, just have the other one as elif follower ID. Is
Okay.
it?
If follow is none, then if it will give us a problem. You know why that is so? This if you use that if chain, that elif chain, what will happen is let's assume that the user that this the ID that this user sent, all right, the ID that the client sent is invalid. Okay. And it will check if this following is known. Okay, if this ID is invalid, this line 36 will return none. This user data non-ID is equal to this, it will return a non-value. So what will happen is that this, even though it returns none, it will
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Hello? I don't know if it's from my end though. Guys, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. I think it's from his end. His network broke.
Good to the assignment. I thought, has it given an assignment?
He gave an assignment like yesterday class, though I don't know if like the assignment is a promotional task or not, because me, if I'm still waiting for my own assignment.
I don't know. I think you should like upload the type the written format because just during the class.
I gave it during the class. It's just
Yes,
yeah. All right. Yeah.
Hi guys, what happened?
I think his network broke off. Well, we're waiting for him to come back.
Okay, thanks. I'm just coming back myself.
Okay.
Hello. Can you all hear me?
Yes, yes, sir. I can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I had a network. I had a network error. Yeah, someone asked a question before I was disconnected. Please, can you ask it?
Yes, yes. I was talking about putting the true if statement instead of having separate.
Yeah.
Let it be like if and elif. Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to switch to I want to switch to my collab so that we can try that example. And see. I want to explain something. So, yes. So CodeCamp is a notebook, a Python notebook you can use to run Python from the cloud.
Okay.
Let me create a new notebook. All right. So let me connect my runtime. It will connect automatically. All right. So let us say we have a variable x is equal to 4, and okay. Then we then write a check if x is equal to 4. If x is equal to 4, I want to print maybe x4. Right. Okay, x4. Of course, this will print x4. Okay. So what if we run a check that there's a chance that this would fail? Okay. Let us say this is not the best example for this. Let us use an array instead. Let's use an array here instead. And we'll say array list. My list is equal to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Then on here. Then I import random library. Then I'll say that x is equal to random choice, and random choice I'll pass in my list. Now, if x is equal to 4, print x is 4, and if x is equal to 3, print say x is 3. Let's run it again. Print something. Let's run it again. All right. So what I was trying to, you guys study.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
So what I'm trying to say is there are situations in which x will not be 4, all right, and x will not be 3. Okay. If we are using a pure if, let's say if this is equal to this, if the thing is not that, all right, if the thing is not that, the code under it will execute. Okay. But if you are using let's say an elif, yeah, elif x is equal to 3. If the thing is not 4, all right, instead of executing this code, it will come down and then try this other one. And then if it is still not that one, that's when it will then execute the code. All right, that is not what we want in that is not what we want in this particular example. I need a situation in which if this is known, it will return an exception at once. But if we use an elif statement here, if this particular thing is known, it will not return this exception. Instead, it will try this one. Okay. And only if this particular check fails, that's only if the first one fails and the second one fails and every other chain you link the fails, that the exception will return. And that's not what we want. Okay, we want to check if this is known. If this should fail, it should throw an exception. If this should pass and this fails, it should throw an exception.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is why we cannot use if this, then elif this, and maybe elif this.
Okay, I get that. So my other question was because I'm also trying to, I think I would have even asked this when we were creating the likes. I'm trying to like imagine this, let's say this app being deployed. This is like the back end we're creating, and let's say assuming we are launching this, there will be a front end, and I'm assuming that this endpoint we're creating, let's say this follow endpoint, in the front end, it will be linked to a button, a follow button that someone will click.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So the way like most social media platform we know of, like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even YouTube, subscribe button on YouTube. If you click let's say if you click follow, it follows. It shows that okay, you are following the person. If you click it again, it will unfollow. So it's like clicking the button once, follow, then clicking the button again, unfollows. So the way we are creating this endpoint now, it seems like okay, if you click the button once, it follows. If you click it again, instead of it to unfollow, it will return an error that oh, you are already following. So I don't know, is there a way you are going to is it possible to like take care of that kind of scenario? So I was thinking maybe we'll create it in a way that if follow, like this query with what we wrote where we say if already exist, so maybe it will now like change the status, so maybe delete the record or something like that. Instead of returning an exception, it will just like delete it, or will I say reverse it or something like that. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, I understand. I don't understand the question. So how that works is, though you could do it that way, right? But there could be a separate on follow endpoint. Then on the front end, we don't directly link these endpoints to a button. Okay. On the front end, they could have a button. All right. Let's say, okay, on the front end, maybe when the user logs in, we could have an endpoint that the front end can use to query the total number of users this person has followed. Okay, so when the user is on that particular user's page, if you have followed that user, what you will see would be maybe an unfollow button. Okay, and if you click that unfollow button, it will then record, like it will send the request to the unfollow endpoint, and when the request is successful, it will record there on the front end that hey, okay, this guy has maybe unfollowed this user, or just an hour. That's what they do. There is like they use I don't even explain it. It's the front end framework that they use for that. Something like JavaScript. Let's say if we're building front end with React or React Native, they use something like JavaScript. Take for example,
to be like a toggle.
Yeah. Let me create maybe a test.js file here. To illustrate the concept. Yeah, it could be something like this. Maybe how do we even define a function? Think it's function. Then the name of the function, maybe something like this. Yeah. Sure, I've forgotten how to declare function in JavaScript. Sorry about it. So the whole thing is it's been a while since I looked at JavaScript.
Yeah, I understand.
So
but I think I get the idea. Yeah,
yeah, they will write a check.
End.
Yeah, these endpoints are not like directly linked to any button. They are not directly linked to any button. They are just there. Then they will then write their logic on the front end. They'll just check if you have followed this user. What we should have is an unfollow button. And when the user clicks on that unfollow button, it will send a request to the unfollow endpoint. Okay. If you haven't followed this user, they have a logic that will maybe show you a follow button. And when the user clicks on that follow button, it will send a request to a different endpoint that's meant for following. It's not necessarily a single endpoint, though you can make it a single endpoint if you wish to, but I don't really see a specific use case for that, but it is entirely possible. The way you explained it is entirely possible.
Okay, so I get.
So please, do you have any other question on this?
Not really a question, sir. As regards the assignment from the last class, so I'm thinking that can you give us like a written format of it, or go back to the video and after that class, I think some of us have forgotten the assignment. Maybe go back to the video. I don't know the exact time. Maybe that was a written format of the assignment and the deadline if possible.
Okay. It will be I believe IKs will post the assignment information. Yes, and publication link on the stage 14 channel when it's time for the assignment. But I'm just telling you that will be your assignment.
Okay.
All right, so you just get public. You clone this project. Then you just.
You said, are we cloning or we are forking?
You fork the project. Sorry, okay. You fork this project to your repository. Then you make the change. Then push it to your repository, and you submit a link to that repository to the Airtable submission link, and I'll be able to review from there.
That's better. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So the next thing we are going to do is to we are going to build an endpoint for unfollow. So do it this way. I want it to be a delete request. Delete request. Unfollow. Then the status should be okay. So what we're going to do is to first we will check for we'll extract the folio. We'll extract the folio with await follows dot get follows dot get command. Then you want to look for a follow where the follower is the current user. Follower is equal to current user. Current user. Then where the follow is where the flowy ID is this user ID we have entered. Yeah. Okay, let me do it this way. Let me extract the flowy first. Then we'll update this flow with what we extracted. Now, if follow is none, I want to raise an exception with a status code of 4.4. Then detail will be that this follow does
Hello? Can I see him?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I had an issue with my PCs. So I'm rebooting it.
All right, sir, no problem.
Hello, Che.
Yeah, I'm here.
How far now? So,
Cool. Just 2 minutes. How your side now? I just submitted my own task, my stage 14 task, so I'm waiting for it to be marked so that they move me to stage 14. No, there was a delay for me when I delayed
I know
it.
you are now. No, you are. You're not chief now. So,
Is it cheap now? Cheap
no Python code camp without you now.
when we start, I think saying na just normal Python. This Python wey they say dey easy. Anybody wey say Python dey easy.
Yeah. They said intermediate, so you expect the
Yeah, it's not
increased
easy at all.
complexity.
At all.
Yeah.
So we are still waiting
Sorry.
for.
Yeah.
All right.
Hello. Sorry.
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
We can hear you, sir.
Yeah. Sorry. My PC had issues.
Okay.
The thing shut down. I had to reboot it. So,
Okay.
let me. We are building the unfolding endpoint. So, this follow does not exist. This follow does not exist. Now, if the code escapes that block, that's the check at line 76. It means that. So we can simply await, then call follow button. This will simply delete that follow. So that's how we can. That's one of the ways we can implement follow. Please, do you have any question on this?
Okay. No question from me. No.
Okay. So my system is still having issues, so I don't know, it may shut down. So we are going to, if it shuts down, we'll continue the class on. That means what that means is that I'll not be able to share my screen again.
Okay, sir. No problem. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I'll build one more endpoint. Then we'll use this endpoint to basically get all the follows and follows of the user. Everything the user has followed, everything the user has, what I mean is we need to go to the followers and the followees, not the followers and the followees of the user. So when the user queries this endpoint, we'll extract all these details and send over to the client. So this will be a GET request. We'll call this follow starts. Now I don't want to use I need the user ID to actually be passed in, because take Twitter for example. When you visit someone's profile, you're able to see the number of users that are following this user and number of users this user is following, right? Then you are also able to do that in your profile. I don't want a situation in which if I use this, maybe without taking in the user ID, if I use just current user to query the data, Okay, it will be. I will need to create a new endpoint when we want to query this data for other users. We need to create a new endpoint. So I don't want to do that. I want us to use a single input. That's why I'm calling it user ID. What this means is that even when I want to get these details for myself, the client still needs to pass in my ID to the request. So this is what we call next. Provide a name.
Okay, the mic is going up and down. I don't know. I'm not hearing you.
Okay. It was far from my mouth, maybe that's why. But I believe you can know him.
Okay. Yes, I can hear you.
Now we'll create an endpoint here. We will return this data. So to do that, the first thing we need to do is to create a data schema that will represent this data we are sending out. Okay. So we need user public. So import from library dot schemas dot register import user public. All right, so here all we need to do is we want to get the followers. And I want these followers to capture all the users following this user. What that means is this will be a list. And what kind of list will it be? It will be a list of user public. And of course, it is possible for user to be without followers. So this should be optional. This should be optional. And in such situations, I want the default value to be an empty list. Will be the users that this user is following. So it will be the same thing. An optional list of user public to the default value of empty list. So we are going to specify the ORM mode here. All right. So import this follow start public to here. And we're going to use that as a response model. All right. So do you have any question concerning this?
Okay, no question so far, no, for me.
Okay. So now, what we're going to do now is get the users, get the followers. That is the users following this user. So to do that, we are going to await. So we'll filter we'll go to the follow step and filter, search for instances where the followee, where the followee, yes, the user that is being followed is our user. That will give us the followers. Then, so followees, we'll look for instances where the follower is our user. Where the follower is our user. So all we need to do is to craft the response, and our response will be equal to follow static public, and we'll set the followers to these followers we extracted here. Then we'll set the followees to the followees we extracted here. When we are done, we simply return that response. So that's just it. So sending a request to sending get request to this endpoint will extract the total users this user is following and the users following this user. So on the clients, the clients can, if the client needs a count, we can just call in len for using JavaScript. You can call in len to get the count of this array that we've done. So each if you look at this is not a list of string, this is a list of user public. And if we look at register, you see what and what is included in user public. Basically, the entire dump of this user's details is included in user public. Okay, so please, do you have a question on this?
Okay, so that means we don't need to put the count method in this one.
No. We don't need it here. The computation will be done on the front end. Yeah, any question on this?
No other question from me.
Okay, so I think we've done so much in this particular project. We have like we've done the core things in this particular project. We've looked at, oops, this is not supposed to be here. We've looked at account creation, login, tweets, creation of management, then comments, likes, and now it is follows and unfollows. So this is just the basics of what we have on Twitter. Apart from messaging, all right. Apart from messaging, and for that, you could just create a messaging model, like a message model, and you add sender will be the user that is sending this, and the receiver will be the user that is supposed to receive this message, and the content field which will be a character field. So we use that as message. Then you create an endpoint that will use us to create these messages and delete these messages. So that's that. If you need instant messaging, you can make use of Redis. But you can make use of Redis for that. But we are not going to cover that here. We're not going to cover that here. So the next step here is that we are going to deploy this. I will speak to the program manager about giving us access to a server for this deployment. Right? If they are unable to do that, think Linode gives is it $100 credit or so? Yeah, Linode does that. I think Digital Ocean does that too. So maybe I'll set up a temporary server and deploy this. Then at the end of the class, I'll delete it off. Like I just want to show you how to deploy. So with this, I believe you know enough to go out there and learn the rest on your own. Okay. Like you know enough at this point. You know the basics of fast API. You know how to work with databases. You know how to work with Redis. Then you know how to do the basics. Okay, we've been looking at documentations. You know how to, like, when you're stuck, you can reference the documentation and look for a solution. You know how to look for answers on Stack Overflow. So I believe you know everything you need to build a project. Okay. So what I would advise you is to think of something you can build. All right, think of something you can build, then build it. Right, because that's really the best way to learn. Okay, that's really the best way to learn. Think of something, then build it. And I believe from next week, you guys will be working on your internship. It will be a project. Have you been given information on that? Yes.
Yes, I got a mail.
Okay. So that's what you guys will be working on. It will be a full project, and it will be nice for you guys to use that and learn. And I'll be providing some level of support. Okay, but I will not be writing the code for you guys. We are providing some level of support. Maybe if you're stuck with something, you are free to always get in touch with me on Slack, and I can explain it the best way I can, or I can just show you the way on how to tackle it. But the main code will be written by you guys. Right? So when you're done with that, I recommend you try and build as much as you can. And that's just how to learn. And of course, I've not taught you everything because it's not possible for me to teach you everything. You need to make the documentation your friend. Make the documentation your friend. Okay. Learn to go through docs. Anything you don't understand, any library you don't really understand, you should have a documentation. So you can always reference that and get what you need. Then if you're still stuck, the Stack Overflow, you can always search your errors there on Stack Overflow, and hopefully there should be a solution. So that is that.
It has been really wonderful.
That's good to know. Thank you. So do we have any question?
No question for me, sir. Yes.
Oh.
Thank you very much for the classes.
The internship project is a kind of group work, right? We are working together.
Yes. You guys are all working together. So I think how this will work is that I'll get the full project brief. Then the when the UI designs, I don't think I'll break this into actionable tasks that you guys can work on. Then is this tasks that will be split across. I believe you know how to work with Git, right? How to collaborate with Git.
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah, basically how to make pull requests because you can work on the master branch. When you're working on something, you create a branch, push your code to the branch. Then when you are sure that what you are doing is working, you can then push it over to GitHub. Go over there, create a pull request, then request for review. So that's just it. Maybe we may have a class on that. If I see that you guys are having issues with that, we may have a class on that so that I can show you how that works. That's just it. I believe you receive more details from next week. And though we'll still be having classes, but it will be about once a week. It won't be twice a week anymore. And it won't be these long classes anymore. It will be maybe we'll just be discussing the project, right? Whatever issues you guys have, whatever blockers you guys have, you can like, bring it over there. We can work on it together and hopefully resolve the issues there. So that's how it will be moving forward. We are done with the main classes now. One class will be about deployment. Maybe that will be next week, if it is possible next week or per week. But before the end of your internship, we are going to deploy this to a live server so that you can see how you do that. All right. So you see how you do that. So that's it. Let me push this to GitHub so that you can pull it from your end. Yeah, there's one thing I wanted to say, but I have forgotten. Okay. So we haven't written unit tests for this. Okay. I will update the question I submitted, the assignment question I submitted to IK. So I'll update it to include unit tests for this endpoint. What I mean is the follow. I don't think we've written unit tests for this user's endpoint. We've not written any unit test for it. So I will update the question so that you need to write this unit test. So I guess that'll be all. Yeah, that'll be all.
Thank you very much, sir. Really appreciate it.
Okay.